Hey everyone, we are going to go over discussion board 3, the instructions as well as the peer replies, just like we did with the previous discussion. So when you go into this discussion, we are looking at natural hazards. This is bringing up topics that we discussed in our Unit 2 live chat and in Telepath. You are given a map that shows some of the hazards affecting different areas of the United States. I'm laughing a little bit because, this is not an all-encompassing map. Obviously, for instance, like there's more natural hazards than just tornadoes in Kansas. Texas, you've got a home going underwater, but there's, I lived in Texas and there's hurricanes and there's fires and there's tornadoes in Texas and landslides. So this is not all encompassing. It's just to kind of give you a general idea. So you are most likely going to have to do outside research about the hazards in your area and how they are prepared for. Again, AI generated content or AI usage is considered plagiarism. We want to hear your own unique experiences. If you use outside sources, which you're probably going to have to, just put them in, the links at the bottom of your post, and that way, there's no issue there with any kind of plagiarism. So again, your similarity score needs to be below 10%. Anything above that, you're going to hear from me on the discussion board and through Ctu Messenger. And sometimes accidental plagiarism can happen. It's rare, but sometimes it can. Again, as long as you fix it, no harm, no foul. So in the instructions, you've got some questions to answer. So it says, what natural hazards are most relevant to where you live? Describe at least one hazard in detail. Why is your area vulnerable to this hazard, and what factors contribute to that risk? So again, I've given you sentence stems to help you. So the natural hazard that I encounter the most in my area is, whatever one you want to highlight. You can do more than one, like you can list several. My state or area is vulnerable to this hazard because, whatever reasons that you find, right? The next part says, share specific examples from your home, neighborhood, or workplace to explain how you or your community prepare for these hazards. Consider things such as the following: building designs or materials. That's especially relevant for like hurricanes and tornadoes. Emergency kits or evacuation plans, clothing or gear choices, local policies or infrastructure. So that's what question 2 is. We prepare for this hazard in my community by. And then the third part is, have you ever experienced a natural hazard firsthand? If so, what did you learn from that experience? I would argue that everyone has experienced a natural hazard unless you're, like 5 years old and below. Because most likely you have all been through some kind of severe storm or hail, or a blizzard, or lightning that has caused issues in your local area. Pandemic could even be considered a natural hazard. So saying no is kind of silly on this question. I really wish that was not included in there. But if you do say no, you're supposed to say, what would you do differently after learning about your local risks? So that's the sentence stem for number 3. I've experienced a blank hazard, whichever one it is, and I learned blank from the experience. So some common natural hazards that you may have encountered are listed here. Kind of the top ones are, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, wildfires, floods, severe storms, like I mentioned before, tsunamis, droughts. There's all kinds of things. So most likely you have, encountered at least one of these. So the example that I gave is my instructor example. I talk about how there's, quite a few hazards that we have here where I live at in Colorado. The main ones that we tend to encounter are wildfires, floods, tornadoes, earthquakes from fracking wells, and severe hailstorms. So I've listed a couple there. The one that I kind of focused in on was wildfires because that's kind of a really big major issue that we are dealing with and have been dealing with probably over the past 6 to 7 years. We've been in a drought for a really long time. And so the land is very vulnerable to catching fire. And then I talk about, in the past it was just mountain communities that had to worry about it, but now urban and suburban communities are having wildfires. Currently, right now, we are having a major wildfire in Colorado Springs. That is not good. And so then I talk about how we tend to prepare for wildfire season, listing several things that we do. And then I talk about my kind of like personal experiences, that part 3 where it's like, have you ever experienced a natural disaster? Unfortunately, I seem to be like the natural disaster queen because I've been through a lot of different ones. I've been in hurricanes. I've been through floods. I have actually been through a volcanic eruption. We felt earthquakes from that. So I then talk about what those experiences have helped me to learn. So again, kind of like discussion 2, you're gonna probably have several paragraphs of information that you should be writing about. So you'll definitely meet that, word criteria. And I don't care if you guys go over it, like that doesn't bother me at all. I'd rather you do more than do less. So looking at your peer responses, again, same as the last discussion, you need to have 2 peer replies, 50 to 100 words. Again, if you go over that, it's fine. The responses should be substantive and encourage interaction. So looking at the bad response versus the good response, first of all, you can tell right away this is not going to meet that word criteria. So it says, thank you for sharing your experiences with hurricanes. That sounds really scary. I have experienced a hurricane as well. Hopefully we will not have any more in the future. So again, there's no substance here. You're not asking any questions. There's no new ideas being presented. There's no suggestions. It's more just like, thanks for writing that. I relate to it, and hopefully things aren't going to happen like that again. Like it's not, there's nothing for them to really respond to, right? So the good response is in reply to the one that I posted. So, right, it's okay to tell them like, hey, you did a good job, right? You can lead off with that. That's fine. That's typically how I always lead off. And then I talk about, I give them some kind of new information about, a problem that's causing further issues with the wildfire in their community is that, houses are being built in the mountains, and, scientists are kind of studying like, okay, how can we reduce the wildfire risk? And then it ends with a question. Okay. So you'll note that this response doesn't have a link like the one in discussion 2 did. So this is still a good response. It meets the word criteria. It is substantive because they're giving them new information and they are asking them a question. So this fits into that category. So you can clearly see the difference between the bad response and the good response. Okay. Your rubric for this discussion, your first area is saying that you show an understanding of natural hazards and risk factors by interpreting local data and explaining the science behind those hazards. So this is where you've identified a hazard in your local area and you have talked about what is it that is causing that natural hazard and what are the risk factors that, cause it to occur. The second part, it says, reflects on personal or community preparedness strategies, demonstrating how earth science concepts influence daily decisions and safety planning. So this is where you're reflecting on the hazard that you have been through and experienced, and how did the community prepare for that particular hazard, or how do they tend to try to do safety planning for that hazard to occur. And then same as before, you've got your 2 discussion board peer responses where you're replying substantively to 2 posts. Your organization is clear, it's logical. Again, if you want to copy and paste those sentence stems into your post and use that, that's completely fine. And then, of course, your grammar and your spelling are good. Again, like I said before, you want to probably use like Google Docs or Microsoft Word or something that has a spell checker and grammar checker in it. That way, that what you have is accurate. If you have any questions or need anything, please reach out to me. There are extra resources in the class announcements as well. And I look forward to reading about the hazards that you choose.